Hello, everybody. It's David Perlmutter from QuantumListing, and welcome to our webinar today, 2019, the year in CRE Tech. We have a special guest today, Andreas Senie, CEO and founder of CRE Collaborative. And I am also very excited to tell you that we have a brand new sponsor for our webinars, the News Funnel. And if you are not familiar with thenewsfunnel.com, you ought to familiarize yourself with it as soon as possible. It is an incredible resource for getting all of the commercial real estate news you could possibly ever need. They have sister companies, CRE Tech, which puts on amazing commercial real estate tech conferences, which Andreas and I and Julia, who's on our team, and have gone to. And Sierra from the News Funnel, I think, is with us today. Hello, Sierra. And Atypical is another one of their sibling companies, and that is a amazing marketing, commercial real estate marketing firm. So thank you to the News Funnel and Sierra, and let's get started. I think we have a slide deck, which I unfortunately haven't had a chance to look at yet, but we have Andreas here with us. And Andreas, do you want to, tell us a little bit about yourself first and why you started CRE Collaborative.
Absolutely, and and to tee that up, let's go back to the News Funnel and CRE Tech and how great a partner and just an industry name they are. Michael Beckerman's group and I and David, we all in the tri-state and all go way back in CRE Tech, and that's brings me full circle to why I started CRE Collaborative. As a real estate broker myself, as a third generation developer, I grew up surrounded in this business, and I knew all the right people. And as I was growing up in it, technology started to open doors that no one knew about or were hard to find. And through these relationships and with technology, you can do as much business as you want to. But the key part of that is through relationships. And CRE Collaborative is a system that enables you to leverage your relationships as well as create new relationships, not just between people, which has been done forever, but now between technologies, because 5 years ago we had 80 technologies in the space. Michael Beckerman was there, CRE Tech was there with 100 attendees, now over 1,000 attendees at their shows, and I was there, and David, you were there. Yeah. Now we have 6,880 plus companies in the space, and that just it's about the connectivity, it's about the evolution of the space, or really the standard, the return to what is normal with the added advantage of technology. Because nothing has really changed in the industry except those of us using technology are doing it much faster, much further, and in ways never possible before, but through the same methodology that's always been used in this business, and that's through relationships, working together to close deals. So did you have that slide up by chance? And Sierra, welcome. I didn't realize you were from Atypical. I'm excited to learn more about your background as well. So if you would, why don't we get a round statement?
Sierra is on the News Funnel part.
News Funnel, excuse me.
It's we need another slide just to for all the players here. But I'm showing your incredible funnel slide right now, Andreas.
I appreciate that. All right, so and again, just to cue it back up. So here you have in the real estate industry, you have to an immense amount of data, and I say immense amount of data. It used to be that a broker or the principals would keep all this information in their head or on a spreadsheet or on their desk. And using that data, that knowledge, they would then execute transactions. Now, to keep up with the times and to execute further and in new areas, you need that data to move and collect into a funnel, into a place where you could then have it execute for transactions. It no longer fits in your head, is the short of it. So we created a system that has zero competitors in that it just collects your data for you, presents it to your data platforms, and connects, and then presents data technology platforms to you so you can act faster than ever before. And that's the CRE Collaborative vision, that's shaking hands. And that's where that funnel was born. It was like, how do we just collect everything and get it into one place? Well, we funnel it. And what comes out of the other funnel is a standardized stream or a single dashboard, an input, an output that can be utilized either by a person or by a partner platform, like QuantumListing, for instance, where we help augment data. We provide our data to them on behalf of users and vice versa. I hope that helps paint a clear picture of what we do. I know it's been some time since I've been on one of these.
It is good, and I think if we could characterize 2019 in terms of commercial real estate technology, first of all, it's been one of tremendous growth. It's been a year of lots of funding every year. Every month. I read the updates and the news funnel about all the volume of funding that has poured into the CRE Tech space each month, and it's tens of millions of dollars, if not hundreds of millions of dollars every month. Of course, when people think of commercial real estate tech in the second half of 2019, everybody sort of thinks about WeWork and going from a $47 billion company on paper to like an $8 billion company. In all honesty, in my opinion, WeWork characterized itself as a technology company, but it really was in the business of real estate space arbitrage. They were renting
a real estate company with technology.
Yeah, and the technology, I don't know if a kombucha dispenser is really technology, but I think that they were very clever in how they marketed themselves, and then maybe in the end a little too clever. But I promise you that today's webinar is not going to be all about WeWork. I think I've said my piece on that, and we can move on.
Well, so. but you brought up a great point. Points is all that money being invested. 10.5 times the amount of money that has been invested into the space this year, the last 12 months, over the last 10 years compared. So it is an incredibly hot space with an incredible, as I mentioned earlier, incredible amount of opportunities or choices, right, for our users in the industry. So I guess for me, I think the biggest categorization in the industry for 2019 is it's big players, and big players have, what do you do with your data, and what do you do with this technology? Each of whom have said using our technology, and I always go back to, the industry hasn't changed. You still do business the way you've always done it, a little better, a little faster. So how do you use all the different technologies, not just the biggest and the brightest, or even the loudest? WeWork was great on paper. Well, maybe not on paper. Not to bring them back into the conversation. It was a door opener. It totally changed the way that side of the business is done. And I think you can say the same about some of these technologies. The partnerships, the collaboration, the industry is calling for open technology. They want their service, and they want it now. So how do we get it to them? Is really the question.
So I've got on the screen now, Andreas, I don't think it sounds like you're not at your computer. The slide that says how it works, tech enablement. And so I think that, this is probably a good place to start, which is probably why you put it at the beginning of your slide deck, about how and why should we be using commercial real estate technology? What's it, and what's the smart way to go about picking what you want to use and deploying it and getting it to all work together?
Certainly, and that's spot on. There are 4.9 million real estate professionals in the U.S. today. 4.4 million of those do not have an IT department or a CTO who is tasked all day with figuring out what technology should be used or what is the competitive advantage of that technology. So CRE Collaborative, in addition to being just a portal, a middleware, provides that advisory service in the sense of we come in and we work with companies to evaluate their business needs, because we are in that business. It's where we've come from. And then say, all right, here are the technology solutions that can not only fix that, but if you tie them together, this is where this could grow to. And the future needs or future problems that this will solve, some of which aren't even under consideration yet. As you know, the industry is a bit email heavy. Not that that's a bad thing. It's a great way to communicate. But things change, things evolve. And if we spend, and on average, 40% of a real estate professional's time is spent on their email alone, it doesn't leave a lot of time for deal making, which is why having a company like ours, a product like ours, come in and just take over the technology, handle the technology for them, is essential in today's evolving environment. Remember, we went from 80 companies 5 years ago to 6,800 companies today, vendors, in effect, services, all with disparate data, desolate data, all, places, things to take up your time, and we've only got X amount of hours, golden deal hours a year to spend closing business. You are right, David. I am trying to get that screen here, so I do apologize for that. Good catch.
So tell me a little bit about the types of technologies that a broker ought to be using today.
Well,
and then obviously I'll let you tie it into what you're doing with CRE Collaborative, which I think is brilliant in that it makes using real estate technology ultimately easier because you don't have to be everywhere. You're going to one place. But tell us a little bit more about.
Certainly. So, a broker's day is straightforward. You wake up, a broker, I don't care, broker, investor, owner, developer. You wake up, you call on your existing deals, you call on your new deals, you find new deals. So what are you doing? You're arbitraging your email or your communication, hopefully email, hopefully secure communication as well, including things like Scribo, which is an end-to-end secure messaging platform that will send documents and then actually shred them from the internet afterwards, as an example of one of our partners. Then you need things like, David, QuantumListing, because now you've got deals. How are you pushing them out there? You can't just email them or drop them somewhere. You've got to be proactive in destination and distribution of your data, i.e., your deals. This is what I got. How do I move it? How do I sell it? And CRE Collaborative, as a central point, pushes, whereas QuantumListing takes up and is a marketplace for that, as an example. Third, you need up-to-date, relevant industry data to make decisions. We're talking about your demographic data, job growth, economic trends, data that before now may not have been easily available, or at least not readily available at the moment you needed it in new markets. And that's where looping all the technology together, bringing those data feeds together, allows people to have actionable insights at a moment's notice with the right technology. So you asked, what should they be using? Well, they should still use their email. Add to their email a way to securely transfer, sign, and then shred documents, given today's dangerous tech environment. And then they need to be up to date as always. The difference is, instead of being on Main Street Bob Main Street broker Bob, who knows everything on Main Street, and everybody goes to him because he's the only guy they know, because he's the only sign they see. The internet allows not only the professionals to go out there and search, but our end users, our clients, our competitors. If you are not out there using tech, the right tech, and presenting it, then your clients are going to ask you why you're not there. I just the other day I was with a client, my brokerage and I, and they said, and he ran me through a list of places where his listing should be. And then I politely said, well, really, here's the actual list of all the places it could be, and here's all the places they are. And it was just, it's a new world. It's a more transparent world in an otherwise opaque industry that has been reticent to change.
Let me just interject that one of the things that Andreas and I have in common is that before we went and started our commercial real estate technology companies, we were both commercial real estate brokers and developers. And so the way that we approach this technology is from a very real world, pragmatic point of view. If it's not going to help, and we're both still active in brokerage, and if technology isn't going to drive our deals forward, it's not that interesting to me. I've got X hours a day. I'm dividing it between two businesses, so I really want to make sure that anything that I'm plugging into my real estate brokerage business is really going to be a catalyst for doing those deals, doing them faster, doing them smarter, doing them a little bit easier, and hopefully doing more of them.
And I think that's right. Technology is either getting in the way or it helps get obstacles out of the way. And with so much technology available, it can be overwhelming. So keeping it pragmatic and the approach to your use of technology is just that. I think the industry would agree. What the news funnels out there talking and hearing it as well. Does any insight on that side of the call?
I think Sierra is really more on the marketing side of it, so I'm not sure it's fair to ask her that question. But as a dedicated news funnel reader, I just do want to point out to our viewers and listeners that even though my bias, and I think probably Andreas's bias, is towards the things that facilitate our brokerage businesses, there's a host of commercial real estate technology that is dedicated to smart buildings and improving building management systems. There's another slew of technologies that are all about improving the tenant experience in those buildings, creating a sense of community among the users. And then there's yet another subsector of the CRE tech industry, which is construction technology. I mean, we're going to be living in a world of 3D printed buildings and homes in the not too distant future. So well, that stuff is happening.
Yeah, the built world tech, property tech, and then the CRE tech worlds are all colliding. I think your owners and managers are streamlining operations with a host of sensors and different prop tech things that they can do. For instance, one incredible technology I just saw this year out of MIT is they have city planners now, basically with Legos and computers in the background, moving buildings, moving around their master plan for the cities. And then the computer, machine learning AI, comes in and actually repredicts how traffic patterns and congestion will be affected. So these sensors, that nobody was paying attention to, people crossing the street, literally, walking counts, things we have been using for 10, 20 years. Of course, they want to collect, it went from census data, are now being transformed into, as I said earlier, this actionable insight. And then how that data then is going to affect us brokers is David, I'm not going to date myself or date you. I don't know here. The commercial side of it, we went from car volume, traffic counts, to now things as important as walk scores or air quality sensors. I mean, there's an app somewhere that's going to tell you how many pigeons are flying over McDonald's. That's going to calculate how busy that McDonald's is because of the people throwing trash out their window. So Subway could buy the store across the street, and to somebody that'll be valuable. And technology is going to let you do that, and that's what's really incredible is seeing these things all now coming up and being able to do their work based on the available data from these technologies.
No, it really is incredible. I think the first big success in the commercial real estate technology space, of course, is one that started 20 something years ago, and it's kind of the company that everybody loves to hate, and that's CoStar. And they acquired LoopNet, they've apartments.com, Biz Buy Sell. I'm sure I'm missing a few others. And so they've become a multi-billion-dollar company by creating a very large, primarily marketplace and data source, and they charge a hefty price for the data that we are giving them for free.
Well, and hoarding it, right? Well, I say hoarding. In that that's a 1.0 mentality of let me hold all my data, let me covet as much as I can, and and sell it. And I think what you're finding now is more and more companies realize they need to reach across to one another because AI will. CoStar is incredible with what they did when they did it, but they have a building full of people to do that. One computer can do the job of a building full of people if the data is available. The only way that data gets available is when we can connect all these systems across. And that's what you're seeing with Reonomy and BTS and all these other groups, and even Moody's trying to connect data. But inherently, each of whom are all rather large companies that compete, so they can't connect. At the end of the day, our end users, need their own data, need to be able to move it. And that's what CRE Collaborative is after, at least. And just like QuantumListing, you guys are out there pushing it to the right people at the right time, in a non. I was just on Biz Buy Sell, and the pricing model there is just it has changed so drastically. But in a way,
the thing is that the world we live in now is essentially a world that has largely been shaped by Google, and Google has created an expectation that information should not only be widely accessible, it should be free or darn near free. I mean, there is an implicit cost to all of us in Google in that we are seeing advertisements and being tracked and having our data stored and used for their economic gain.
Yeah, that's right. Go ahead.
So I think that companies that hoard data and then parcel it out very expensively are putting themselves at risk in the future just because the market and the world has changed. I don't think that people are going to tolerate that when um, the information that's being hoarded is something that you can really find for free if you're willing to put in a little time and effort, uh, elsewhere. So, I think that people do like the convenience of having data aggregated and organized and normalized so that it can be used very easily. And I think that the initiative that you're putting forth, and a lot of other companies are putting forth in terms of creating data and making it very accessible, is one that will ultimately be rewarded.
It's the natural progression of things, in my opinion, in our opinion, and the opinion of most of the stages I've seen, and excuse me, most of the different conferences. Everyone is saying the same thing. Too much data is analysis, paralysis analysis paralysis. What can we do with our data? And there's an incredible amount you can do with it. If it's yours, and two, if you're allowed to. If it's not yours. And these are the things that together, QuantumListing, CRE Collaborative, Scribico, and our other partners are all putting forward. Atom Data. These 2.0 technologies, these companies that want to connect on behalf of the users, for the benefit of the users. Because let's face it, it's much simpler to not connect. It's an expensive exchange to have exchanges between platforms. So that proposition and the things needed to do that is not easy. But at the end of the day, it's the highest. It holds us to the highest level of service to our users, to the industry. And as David said before, coming from the brokerage world, if we aren't of the highest level of service, we don't bring the highest level of service, we don't have those clients. And when that's what I think is unique to our companies that we've brought into this space is every client is just as important to us. Any client, it's not a matter of there being 4.4 million potential users out there to us. Every one of my users, at least I'll speak for myself, is of the utmost importance. And if you lose one, then you fail. And we've spent a lot of time working very hard to make sure everyone is seeing value. And to do that, we're connecting these technologies. At least that's what we've found is the way forward.
Yeah. I'd like to, as Andreas and I continue to talk, if those of you who are at a computer, if you would kindly put in, I guess, what your role is in the commercial real estate industry and what technology that you're using in your business is, I think that would be really interesting and illuminating. And then, you can also maybe say what it is that you would like to see happen in your business in terms of technology. Just to I'm 57. I started in commercial real estate in 1986. It doesn't seem like that long ago, but I remember walking into the office and Peter Burton in Elmsford, and the thing that really impressed me. Well, first of all, I was the only one there who had a personal computer, but they had a fax machine, and the fax machine was brand new technology. And I remember there was like some drum that would like spin around like crazy with the paper, and somehow that would translate the image and send it somewhere else. But it was, long before email and a lot of other things were being widely used, and that was just like, wow. And then other things that in terms of my own business, like how technology has changed is when we wanted aerial photographs for either leasing brochures or things like that, you'd have to actually get order something from the Army Corps of Engineer, who had a database of the United States images, or if you wanted something higher quality and sort of zooming in on the fronts of buildings or shopping centers and stuff, uh, yeah, you'd have to hire a guy with an airplane to go and take pictures, and stuff would take weeks to get back. And now you want a picture of any place on the planet, you just go into Google Maps or Bing or I'm sure a host of other sites, and you get it instantly. Um, so those are just two examples of technology. I would say the fax machine and email, even FedEx, none of them have really sped up the deal process in my mind that much. They've certainly made communication faster and cheaper, um, but it's when people are doing multi-million dollar deals, or even doesn't even have to be that expensive. It's all a matter of scale and what's a big number to you or the user. People are very deliberate and thoughtful, as well they ought to be, in terms of making that decision. But they can get more data to support that decision now and feel more confident in it, in that decision, get that very quickly. So
Well, I,
yeah, go ahead.
it's for me. It's 13 years ago. I'm thinking back and I'm going, driving clients, moving clients, showing markets. And to your point, yeah. Now I just have a meet at the office, or not meet at the office. Just we can do it through in our own offices, from the comfort of our own offices. Share a screen and talk through different sites and locations. And I also, dabbled. I come from a hybrid brokerage background. The residential side, hot sheets, and the first information networks, true information networks, RIN, Realtor Information Network, was the first way that these things were really shared outside of a marketing platform or a LoopNet, a research tool. And now there's sharing on Instagram. You're sharing everywhere. There's so many places to find data and ways and formats to present data. I think that's really the big changer. BuildOut has been a big proponent in kind of standardizing a lot of the marketing today, and I like what they're doing. I think that's going to move us forward, at least in the way of, you're right, David. A lot of what didn't speed things up. It was the way that we communicated. But today, the world has sped up, and I think people want those answers quicker, and they want them in a way in which they're comfortable, and that as some type of standard. Before, it was the fact you didn't see as many deals. Let me say it that way. You weren't looking at as many deals. So now there's an expectation and a quality level of what you're seeing, how you're seeing it, and how often, and how quickly people respond. Certainly, that wasn't there before, because you didn't have anything to measure it against. Your client couldn't take you to town and say, well, so and so is doing X, Y, and Z, or you didn't know you missed that deal because of this reason, and now you do. This is what happened. These were the things you didn't account for, and a lot of times we can put in those sensitivities in some of these new technologies. Oh, sorry guys, we have an Amber Alert in my area. Just went off. Forgive me. And so I lost my train of thought there, but the technology, a look back over the last year, it's just been everybody saying, well, wait a minute, what are we doing with it all? And then how do we communicate it all? And then who owns it? At least from my side of the fence.
Yeah. So I see that one of our participants here has written in that she uses she's a commercial division coordinator at her brokerage, and she uses BuildOut in their syndications. And if you just think about, talk about Build Out for a moment, and Build Out is one of our syndication partners. We are thrilled with the that partnership because they're once their Build Out users elect to use us, their information flows instantly to us, and it gets updated in real time as those brokers and marketing coordinators are updating it on their site. So, as a result, I think that we have a lot more listing end users than we would otherwise. And the preponderance of the data that we have on our site is really up to date just because folks don't have to go to 10 different don't have to go to 10 different sites to update their listings. They can just do it, once through Build Out, and it, is pretty seamless after that. And then it does the brokerage's clients very positive service because there are more places that people can find those listings as a result of that, and hopefully it'll speed up the marketing process somewhat by having that information more accessible. One of our other participants has written in that she's a commercial real estate broker and uses RealNex, Real Capital Analytics, and various city planning maps, and of course CoStar as well as CCIM tools. And RealNex has been an interesting company because they have taken a lot of the different tools, created proprietary tools and have them coordinate with each other. And I think what they've done a in-house version of what Andreas and CRE Collaborative are doing, which is really they're taking best of class. Their CRE Collaborative lets you take best of class tools that you choose and then have them all coordinate and talk with each other.
It's RealNex is I like the RealNex example, and it's the RealNex is created a great complement or suite of tools, and those tools work well. But this user, and I don't have the screen in front of me, she said RealNex, CoStar, and a few others there, and the time it takes to go from one to the other, I imagine, can be draining or daunting. Where in a business where we have less and less time to do deals, my platform took the opposite approach of, we're not going to build those proprietary tools because we believe that someone out there can build a single tool and be the best at building that tool. But we want to make sure the real estate professional who needs that tool's function can access that function. So how do we make it so you can have a toolbox, an endless toolbox of what you need when you need it based on your unique business, and instead of being every tool in that toolbox. And that's the CRE Collaborative difference. We are simply a portal, a single portal, to get your technology or your data where it needs to be. Whereas David, just, I think if I can speak on your behalf, QuantumListing is out there promoting your deals. Build Out may be syndicating them, but Build Out is syndicating them to other marketplaces, whereas QuantumListing is a portal, it's a search engine. It's people coming in and finding those deals. And that's the difference. If you're not on Build, if you're not using QuantumListing, and you're not using RealNex, or you're not using Reonomy, how do you get to every one of the places your potential partner, JV, or buyer, client, broker is on? And the only way to do that is through that distribution and that destination. You need control of both. And to have that, you need to control your data. And that's where CRE Collaborative is a key resource.
I love Sharon, who uses RealNex, Real Capital, and co-star and other tools says she needs a really big screen to so
Keep
she
them all
can
open.
see all her data in one place. And I think for those of us that don't have four screens on our desk, having a portal where we can see everything in one place is is a valuable service.
Well, it's like our cell phones. There was a time you didn't have email on your cell phone, and you could get and you went to the office to check your email, and nobody expected a response until after certain hours. Um, and that's when I say earlier on, I mentioned it's the natural progression. I mean, everybody wants everything at their fingertips, and each of us have a unique ask or a unique way. So how do we do that? We do that through this new way of building technology together. These platforms that can talk to one another. So if you look to the residential side of the industry, it's the same path. It followed, and it's exactly what happened to them. Only it happened 10 years ago. Is now happening to the commercial side. The client side demand for data is there, for transparency is there. So now the professional side demand has risen, and now we're all vying for different places in it. And even Realtor.com was once the biggest, and then was the third biggest. Zillow, Trulia, and others have all rotated around over and over. And that's the big secret of it all. The times will change, but the essence of what we do, it does not change. It's just a question of do we shake hands to do more business? Absolutely. How can our technology do that with us? And that's where I think QuantumListing, CRE Collaborative, and these others are so essential.
Yeah, no, it really is amazing the things that we can pull up. And look, not these companies are organizing this data. They're spending a lot of time and effort in making it useful to us. So it's not all going to be free or even nearly free right away. But as the marketplace matures and more people are in it, I think you'll see the technologies becoming affordable for everybody. You're not going to necessarily feel like you're uh, giving 20% of your commissions to technology providers. So I think that is something that will create value for the end users like us.
I think that's you bring up another great point. It's barrier to entry. There's a few companies we've spoken with here at CRE Collaborative. In our opinion, the part of the ones with the internal IT department or the CTO that are now merging or creating their own internal systems. And internal works very well, again, but you have to update it, you have to maintain it, you have to continue to build it, so you need that external. And platforms like Quantum and ours provide external service that was once only enterprise grade, available to enterprise only companies because of cost, simple cost. It's cost prohibitive for you to combine your technology. Today, it's not. With the right technology partners, you could put together your own suite of technologies.
Yeah.
You couldn't do that 10 years ago.
Yeah. But like in my conversations with some of the technology officers at the major brokerages, I think 10 years ago they wanted to develop everything in-house, and now they're much more willing to look at companies like yours and mine in terms of providing the information that they need. And not only are they willing to be customers of our companies, but they are interested in becoming investors and incubators of all these different real estate technology startups, because they realize that there's a lot of creativity and entrepreneurial spirit out there that if you have a team in house in your ginormous brokerage company, they may be able to solve the problems that you have, but they're not necessarily going to solve the problems you didn't know you had yet. And anybody who's been involved in real estate knows how rich and complex the problems are, and solutions don't necessarily just come from within. So I think it's really incredible that they are willing to reach outside and acknowledge that the solutions aren't just going to come from within, and that it's important for them to be supportive of engendering those solutions so that they'll benefit and maybe even make a couple of bucks in selling that technology to other users as well.
I remember when I first started growing my commercial business here. I mean, really growing it, and it's, as I mentioned earlier, I knew the right people, so the phone would they would answer the phone and the industry side, but the owners and all and the business, we candidly, we took business from our betters every day because we had technology that made us look or move faster and smarter than the others. I tell the story that an iPad literally grows out of my arm because I would always be presenting property. I wouldn't be talking property. I'd be presenting it, and I wouldn't just be knocking on doors, dropping off business cards, but I would be putting direct mail pieces out while at the same time we were sending emails out and doing everything. If you're using the cutting edge of technology, enough of an edge, you're going to take huge competitive advantage. And that's why I think the major brokerages have said, wait a minute, yeah, we're the biggest. And when you're at the top of the mountain, the view is great. But that doesn't mean you're going to see what's coming underneath you. And the people climbing underneath you will overtake you. And that's the Realtor.com story all over again. Zillow and Trulia saw what Realtor.com was doing well, and then figured out things they weren't doing well and did everything better. And all coming back to a collaborative environment. The more collaborative you are, the better advantage you're going to have against your competitors and in your marketplaces, or better yet, your partners in your marketplace.
So we got about 5 or 10 minutes left, and I'd like to pose another question to those of you that are watching or listening, and that is, what would you like to see in your technology toolbox in 2020 and beyond that you don't currently have access to now? Is there something that would make it easier for you to do what it is that you do that you can imagine but you don't have now or you haven't seen yet? And then, while you're thinking about that and hopefully typing a response, I want to ask Andreas, where do you see CRE Tech going in 2020?
It's going to be, you're going to see a lot of the smaller companies drop out at the same time. The larger companies will be picking up the front runners, the 2.0 technologies to complement their own services. There's an environment where there's some great tech that does some great things. Now, how can they expand that great single thing they do into others? And that's going to be acquiring these other smaller companies, and or just a general shift towards single dashboards, whether it's the user using a single dashboard or the companies themselves finding ways to keep users in their dashboard. Because just as we've all joked about on this call at this point, it's a lot of data. I myself have 3 27-inch screens, none of which are on, sadly, right now. So I can't see the screen. But with that, with just an iPhone, how do we get the right data in our hand at the right times? And that'll be the demand moving forward. the right data at the right time with the least friction. That's your 2020.
Yeah. So consolidation, collaboration, cooperation.
Yeah. Location, location, location.
And I see Sharon's advising us to get a Big Mac, and I'm assuming that she doesn't mean from McDonald's. Julio's right there with me on that one. All right. Yeah, it's.
The other thing I think for those of you who aren't in the tech space directly, but in the real estate space, I think you're going to see a huge shift to video conferencing. So more and more people just further and further working remotely, less and less need for your offices, bigger offices. I mean, all things we've seen in the real estate market, so to speak, but video conferencing tools as secure communication. I think that there's going to be real calm for those of you that aren't familiar with it. Is a great resource, but your data security, your technology, everything you're doing and how you're doing it on behalf of your clients or on behalf of yourselves. Let's face it, we carry with us more personal data that is actionable by people with ill intent online than any other industry except banking. And banking knows what they're doing and how to protect it, whereas we're in an industry full of professionals and growing platforms, some of whom may know what to do, are doing, a lot of whom may not know. We're all growing and learning together. So it's best to deploy best practices and work with groups that do. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah. You've become very sensitive to data security in the last several months, haven't you, Andreas?
I have. I have personally, having gone through a hack that was personally devastating. However, luckily my systems, the CRE Collaborative system, things function the way they should have. But it reminded me, for instance, how easily this was on my personal network, our personal phones. And I lost, a tremendous amount of history, family history, photos, things of that nature that just, you forget how easy. Nobody really thinks about their cell phone as something that can be hacked, and it is always in your hand, and it carries more about you than you do in your wallet. And it gives more power to someone if they gain access to it than stealing your wallet would. And I think people should be very aware of that. The industry is aware of that. There was a Chinese chip put into an HVAC system that went out to something like a couple million square feet of commercial real estate. And it was there to skim credit cards in the building, not in the store, not a bad actor at a manager at the cashier. This was, grand scale larceny. And it's just things you have to be aware of. Those public USB stations where you plug in your phone, that could just as easily now download all your data. So if you're not aware of it, I kindly recommend you check out a few articles on our blog, or Professor Darren Hayes is a top 10 forensic computer specialist out of Pace University. He's been a speaker of ours on Freedom Tech. Please join us for that podcast. QuantumListing is joining, and we'll be sending that out soon this week, as well as just gotta keep an eye out, guys. It's a new world in a lot of ways, but the best way forward is the cautious way and the collaborative way, asking questions and working together.
All right. Well, thank you. Before we say goodbye, I want to first thank you, Andreas, for your time today. I know you were gracious enough to be a quasi last minute substitute when we had a change of plan with our original speaker who was supposed to be on tokenization in commercial real estate. Yael Tamar, who will be joining us hopefully in January. And I'm going to now throw it over to Julia, who will tell us about our upcoming webinars and for the remainder of the year. Julia, are you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks.
Well, thank you, Andreas, for all your time, and thank you again to the News Funnel and Sierra for sponsoring this webinar and all of our future webinars. And so, on that note, our upcoming webinars. So next week we have Andrew Bermudez coming in from Digsy for his third encore performance. Andrew has done a lot of great presentations on lead generation, on how to find tenants, and every single time that he has been on, we have learned a lot and also had a blast, which has been awesome. And then the following week, we have on December 18th, we have How to Make 2020 Your Best Year Yet from with Rod Santomassimo. David, please correct me. Okay, yeah, I don't have the Italian accent down yet, but so that should also be a really great webinar. I think David knows a little bit more about him than I do, but I know he does a lot of like leadership training, which should be really great and a really awesome way to wrap up the year. And then, yeah, the following week is Christmas, and we will kick off our webinars in 2020, the second week of January. So very exciting, and we look forward to seeing you on one, whether it's later this month or next year. Crazy to say next year.
Yeah, it's here. So thank you again, Andreas, Julia. Thanks for your help. The folks at the News Funnel and Sierra, who's here with us today and did our wonderful graphics. Thank you, and to those of you that participated and threw in your answers, thank you so much. We often have a very shy crowd on these webinars, so it's really nice that you contributed too. So hopefully we'll see you next week, by the way, when we have Andrew Bermudez. I will be at the New York City ICSC National Deal Making at booth 970. So if you are at the Javits Convention Center next week, please stop by and say hello in person. I'd love to meet you, and I'll be back here, and Julia is going to be leading the webinar next week with Andrew. So thanks again for that, and signing off. Thanks, everybody, and
all right, thanks.
We'll see you again soon.